this video, we're going to show you how much the surface of your bowling ball can really affect the performance of what you see on the lanes. Let's get into it. And we're going to show you using the Mesmerize and the Rattler Big Bite. So I'm taking just a fresh 1000 pad, putting some water on it and putting it on the spinner. We're going to make it fair. They're both out of box, but we're going to take them both down to 1000 so you can see what they both look like at 1000. If you do want to accomplish a pure 1000, you are going to have to take your ball into a pro shop, or if you have a spinner at home. When you're doing it by hand, if you have a 500, it's really 1000. If you have 1000, it's really 2000 just doing it by hand. So if you really want a true 1000, you will need to do it on a ball spinner. If you follow this channel, you know that I'm not a solid girly. I do not throw solids a lot, but I thought this was important to show you guys how if you have a ball that you may not like, you can change a lot of the reaction just with changing the surface. As you saw, we put 1000 on both of these bad boys, and after we show you a little bit of how I'm navigating the lane at 1000, we're going to put polish on them so you guys can see how I can just change my overall ball reaction just by adding a little bit of polish over that 1000. I have a little bit of 4-pin, 10-pin reaction, so I'm going to move a little left, get in the oil a little bit more. Now, for those of you that hear people talk about how solids don't work for them or a pearl's better, I'm sure all of you have been in this situation where you buy a ball, you see someone throw it online and you're like, this looks amazing. They might only throw shikes in their video, so that's why you thought it looked good. But then you get it and you're like, it just doesn't work for me. It's just because the ball probably doesn't match up to you. Now, I'm not saying that that ball is a dud. This is to kind of show you where if you find yourself in that situation, you can probably change the ball reaction to help yourself to have a ball that you can now use in your arsenal. This is why it's really important to have a pro shop operator that knows your game, or you know your game well enough to know which equipment is really gonna work for you versus what you just see in a video. Okay, I'm gonna throw one more at this and then we'll get to the big bite. As you can see with my lower ball speed, that ball is starting to read a little bit earlier than what you probably want, especially on a house shot. I really need it to get down the lane, which is why I prefer pearls, which is where you'll see later in the video how I'm gonna combat that with this ball. But let's see where the big bite puts us. All right, I'm just gonna stay in the same spot with the big bite for right this second. Oh, I really got around that one. That's a good example of if you get around it, your ball will hook. This isn't really a comparison. Again, we're just trying to show you the difference in ball motion that you can change with surface, but the big bite is going to be your hybrid symmetrical ball that is going to be the step down from the Mesmerize, which is your asymmetrical solid. So even though I got around that last shot, just because of the characteristics of the bowling ball, it is a little bit cleaner because it does have a little bit of pearl in it. So I am gonna get a little bit more length and a little bit more sideways direction off the end of the pattern. So I'm going to move a little bit further left. As you can see, it does snap a little bit more off the friction, and that is because it is conserving a little bit more energy down lane when it hits the friction, which allows it to make that quicker back and turn. I think this is a misconception a lot with bowling balls, is that people think a solid, it's gonna hook the most, it's going to give me the most back end. It's quite the opposite. When you're throwing a solid, your ball is hooking more in the front part of the lane versus off the friction. Now again, if you have slower ball speed, higher ball speed, those are gonna dictate a lot of it, but still, overall a solid is not overall more hook, it's more hook in the oil and in the front part of the lane. As you can see, I'm further left with a hybrid versus a solid. And now that's just because my ball is retaining more energy, that once it gets to the friction, like I said, it has more energy to go through the pits. Right now, I'm loving the reaction of the hybrid more than the solid just for my game. Again, we are bowling on a house shot. I would probably prefer the Mesmerize if we had more volume on the lane. But for right now, we're gonna go back to the Mesmerize in the same spot and see what reaction we get out of it. If I throw this good and throw it right, I should still be able to get it to the pocket, but it'll be a little bit lazier with a little bit smoother back end reaction. As I said, still got to the pocket. You saw it was a little bit lazier, and it's not that the ball is not good. It's just because the ball has extended most of its energy before it hit that break point a little bit smoother. So in this situation, obviously, if you had a little bit higher ball speed, you'd be able to get closer to the friction and it would still be okay for you. But for someone like me, where my rev rate is still decently high for my speed in terms of how all of the components come together, that's why the hybrid is just gonna look a little bit better for me, because I want to be able to obviously get into the pocket more flush without being in the territory where I have to move a little bit further right and I get into that spot where I could potentially split when I throw a bad shot. So as you saw, I still struck, still got to the pocket, but it was a little light. I got the 5 into the 7, which obviously is great when you get those hits, but it's not ideal when you're trying to line up. So just to kind of show you, I'm going to move back right into the friction. As you can see, if I can play that line of on the oil versus sending it to the friction quicker, this ball is going to be better for me. Versus now, if I probably switch back to the big bite in that same spot, it's probably gonna go through the face. That's just purely because it saved up way more energy when it got to the friction versus the Mesmerize that had pretty much burned up all of its energy once it got to the friction. So before we polish these, I'm gonna show you a couple different tricks that I have in my bag to kind of show you the difference in ball reaction. I'm going to cut the difference between my far right and my far left right now, and I'm going to just tuck my pinky. As you can see, if you can really see the ball motion down the lane, that ball turned a little bit more than it did when I was in my normal up the back position. It got a little bit more energy saved in the back because when I do tuck my pinky, I get a little bit more length with my ball. All right, cool. Now we'll do the same thing with the big bite and then we'll get in the pro shop and polish them up. Woo! Yeah, that's what I thought was gonna happen. Because like I said, tucking my pinky, I get a little bit more back end, so I'm gonna have to get even further left. Might also be asking, why am I getting more back end reaction? Now, the reason why I personally get more back end reaction when I tuck my pinky is that my tilt gets higher. Now, some people think tilt means more hook. They are correct, but it means in the back part of the lane. So the reason why my ball is coming off the pattern at a sharper angle is because when I tuck my pinky, my tilt goes up, which means that I get more length, and that when it hits the friction, it's going to go more sideways. Okay, I really overmoved, so now I'm gonna cut the difference. Should be a strike. Alrighty. All right, let's go polish them. Similar to what I said with actually bringing down your ball with the surface, it is going to be almost impossible to bring your surface up without actually putting it on a ball spinner. I'm not saying it's impossible, but to truly get a polish on top of a grate, you're going to have to use a ball spinner. Now that we got them all buttered up, again, like I said earlier, this is 1,000 with polish on top. You're gonna see a huge difference in reaction, but there are different things that you can do with the ball. We are only gonna show you 1,000 with polish on it, but there's other things you can do, such as putting 500 with polish. You could even do like the same with not polishing it as high. So there's a lot that you can do. We're gonna show you a little bit in this video. We'll do a video down the road that kind of shows you the difference between all of them, but this is just a starting point for those who might want a different reaction with the same bowling ball. I am standing in the same spot that I last stood with both of these. Drastic difference. The ball is now saving energy because of that polish on top. Just from that one shot, this ball went from being a ball that I probably couldn't see myself throwing much to a ball that now I really like the reaction of. So as you can see, it just makes such a huge difference with the surface of the bowling ball. So now I got a ball that's gonna dig in the oil and save energy down lane. That's what you want. Funny enough, when someone tells me they don't like a bowling ball, the first question I ask them is, did you change the surface of the bowling ball? Because it just makes such a big difference. I know a few of you are probably sitting there saying, okay, you can change the layout of a bowling ball and get similar reaction, but actually you get more difference in reaction just changing the same ball with the same layout, just changing the surface, as you can see. If you really want to see a drastic difference in ball reaction, just change the surface of your bowling ball. I predicted, now it's even sharper off the end of the pattern. So as I predicted, because I put that polish on top, now the ball is making a quicker change of direction off the end of the pattern. Even though it's giving me a little bit more length, it's now conserving even more energy and now making that spot off the end of the pattern sharper and less smooth. So I'm going to have to either bump up my speed, which is what I'm going to try first, or move left. And now on a house shot, because there's so much oil in the middle for my game, moving left might put me into the territory of 10 pinning versus just bumping up my speed. Okay, that one I kind of got my tilt higher, so that's why I got further down the lane, but my speed was definitely in a better position where I wanted it to be. So I'm gonna throw a better shot, and it should strike. Okay. Actually, now I can move even further right, which is good because now I can get more into the friction. As you saw, just that little bit of speed change made a huge difference in my ball reaction. All right, so I'm going to stand where I did on the last shot before we put polish on this ball, where the ball drastically overhooked and went Brooklyn. Okay, this is good. As you guys can see, I can keep moving further right, which on a house shot, straighter is greater. So I'm actually loving this. As you saw, I was actually having to get further left with the big bite than the Mesmerize earlier with the surface on it. Now, I'm about 10 boards right of where I was, and I'm gonna move a little bit more. Moving even more. I'm having a little bit over under because of the polish I put on the ball. Such a drastic difference where I think I was standing like 30, 32 when the ball had 500 on it, and now that ball was 17. And now I'm kind of like where if I stand on 20, the ball doesn't see it, and if I stand on 17, the ball's overhooking. So what we're gonna try to do is I'm going to go back to my normal speed, try to tuck my pinky and stand on 20 and see if I can make a difference in the ball reaction, get to the pocket. All right. So as you can see, a little bit more length, had more shape off the end of the pattern. Now in terms of ball reaction, previously with 500, I would have said I'd prefer the big bite. Now I prefer the Mesmerize if I was going to take a ball out of my bag. Huge difference in giving me more miss room. And now as you can see, I would have preferred the big bite when I had it at 500 because it gave me a little bit of miss room in and out, versus the Mesmerize kind of gave me over under. And now with polish on it, I'd prefer the Mesmerize. So as you can see, it's such a huge difference by just putting different surfaces on your bowling ball. So if you're currently struggling with a ball that you're not quite sure that you like, just go ahead and play around with some surfaces, because you never know, it might be your favorite ball in the end. So if you're in the market for a bigger ASIM, as I said, you have the new Mesmerize. And if you're in the market, if you saw the previous video we did on the Stealth Hybrid, the Big Bite is also a hybrid symmetric. But as you can see, it is gonna have a little bit more bite on the lane. So it's a good complement to that type of hybrid, which is gonna give you a little bit more length and back end just straight out of the box. It does drastically change it with the polish on it, but I would say that the Big Bite is definitely better out of box and or at like an 1,000, 2,000 versus the Mesmerize size where, like I said, you're gonna get like an overall bigger asymmetric bowling ball for heavier volume. All right, so in honor of this video and showing you guys the difference in the reaction of bowling balls with polished and Abralon pads, go ahead and comment what ball you liked more at which surface below for your chance to win some Abralon pads and polish for yourself. So make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below, tell us your favorite moment in the video, whatever you want, you know the drill, and I will pick a winner after this weekend when Nate gets back from his tournament with AJ over the weekend. Thank you again to Brunswick for allowing us to have this opportunity to show you guys these products, and we'll see you guys on the next video.